Good morning. This is Christopher Maher, and welcome to the Friday weekly Law Topics show. My guest and esteemed senior associate Michael DiRienzo is with us, and this week is the second week of what will be a 14-week series on immigration law topics. Michael this week is going to speak to you about asylum. He may wish to share with you his very significant recent asylum victory in the federal court. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Michael. Hello, Michael.
Good morning, Chris. How you doing?
Good.
Very good. Our firm, we just had a big win. We were able to secure asylum on behalf of an individual from a very remote place in Africa, which was under a lot of persecution due to the fact that he was had a different political opinion. So we're very happy about that. And today we kind of want to talk more about the specifics about asylum, because really when it comes to immigration and immigration court, there's really the main thing that most people think of is asylum. And the reason why is because there's visas which you can come, which if you can go from your country to get it back to come to the United States. You can get various types of visas for work visas, planning visas, things like that. But what happens when you can't go back? And a lot of people obtain visas by virtue of knowing that they're trying to flee, and they know they're not going to be able to come back. So what happens when you're here? You're now in the United States, and what's going to happen? You can't go back, but your visa is about to go up, and there's no reason for it to be renewed. And so what a lot of people will claim is asylum. And there's two types of asylum. There's what's called affirmative asylum, which is you come here and then you file what's called an I-589, and you file that with the government. And what that is it's basically your entire application. And instead of going through immigration court, you're basically going to be going down to work, depending upon where you live. If you live on the Northeast or Spain, you're going to go down to New Jersey, and you're going to have an asylum hearing with usually what's called an immigration officer, so not a judge. And the reason why it's called affirmative is exactly what it sounds like, is because once you get here, once you get here, you do it on your own, so you don't have to basically be told to do it. And so that's why it's called affirmative. The second type is defensive asylum. And how that happens is usually, for instance, in the example we gave before, when someone's here on a visa, they're going to get what's called a notice to appear. And that's going to be more or less exactly like a criminal charge to say that XYZ individual, you're a different country, and you came here on this visa, and that visa is now lapsed. You're still here. You're now being ordered deported, and and that's all going to be what's called a notice to appear. And what you're going to say is, it sounds strange, but you're basically going to have to, for lack of better terms, plead guilty to that, because that's accurate. But you're going to say, yes, judge, we understand, but the client should not be required to go back because of XYZ reasons, which we're going to go into. We talked about last week about persecution and on account of, we're going to go into the specifics of all of those at another time, but just to kind of give some people an overview about how the asylum process works. And then you're going to get what's called an individual hearing. And during that individual hearing, you're going to basically make your case. For instance, the one we just had, we were in Hartford on behalf of a client, and we had the client testify. We had other people testify. There was cross-examination. So it's really just like a normal trial. And a judge was there. The only difference is there's no jury or anything like that. So really, it's the judge who has to make that decision. And what happens if you lose an affirmative application for asylum is you still usually get a chance to get a defensive one because you're still within that visa period. So you're here, you say, okay, affirmative asylum, denied, okay, but you still have 2 years, 3 years left on your visa. And so by that point afterwards, you're then going to get put into defensive proceedings, and then you're going to basically do the whole thing. So if you lose at the defensive proceeding, then you can kind of appeal it to an individual board of immigration. It has its own kind of appeal. And then if that doesn't work, you're going to appeal up to the Court of Appeals in the Federal Court of Appeals. For instance, if you're here, it's going to be the Second Circuit. And then if possible, it's going to go to the Supreme Court. And so, just because you win, or excuse me, just because you lose at one of those hearings doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the line. And it also doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a case, because, as any attorney will tell you, that there are various reasons why somebody may or may not lose at basically what's called trial. It could be administrative. It could be an honest mistake. It could just be a misunderstanding of the law. Lawyers, judges, nobody's perfect. Sometimes we all make mistakes there. And so there are still opportunities that if you do lose at a defensive hearing, that you can appeal. And that is also one of the things that we do, is we don't necessarily just, leave the client if it doesn't work out so well. We will kind of continue on with the client and appeal if the client wants to do that. And so more or less, that's kind of an overview of how the asylum process works. One of the reasons why we are wanting to really talk about this now is because last week there was a lot of issues in terms of Afghanistan, and not to say those issues are not still outstanding, but recently, I believe it was yesterday, the Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration's rule of stay in Mexico. So you have all the people that are coming up from Guatemala, El Salvador, and places like that, who once they get to the border, they're claiming asylum, and because they can't go back. And what the Trump administration did was they put what's called the stay in Mexico protocol, which basically everybody had to go back to some city in Mexico to wait until their asylum hearing was actually adjudicated, which creates a whole lot of issues in terms of reasonable access to attorneys and things of that matter. And a lot of people just assumed that once the Biden administration came in, that would be overruled. But the Supreme Court actually said no. The Biden administration, they overruled it in such a way that was unconstitutional. And so that's still going to be put in place. I believe I read the other day that 71,000 people seeking asylum in the United States that came through the southern border are now somewhere in Mexico waiting for their cases to be adjudicated. And so that is why it's really important that no matter if you do affirmative asylum, defensive asylum, or really any type of asylum that you're looking to do, it's really important that you speak to an attorney, because we can tell you firsthand, or I can tell you firsthand at least, that I've seen applications that, because somebody was not represented by an attorney, that were just basically dismissed because of one reason or another. And that same set of facts we were able to win at a defensive application, because because we were able to kind of create this whole timeline, which you really need somebody who's experienced and knows about all the ins and outs of asylum that can really help you. So that's kind of the quick overview about how asylum, the process works. Starting next week, I believe we're going to start going into the specifics of how to actually prove it. And so that's that's kind of it. Oh, there we go.
There we go. I apologize to anyone watching this for the audio lapse, which was brief, but I must have pressed the wrong button, Michael. But thank you so much for that overview, and we look forward to resuming these topics of immigration law next week with you. So
looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Stay safe. Take care, Chris. Bye-bye.
Thank you.